Okay, I'm here with Hans Busker. He's my favorite makelaar in Amsterdam, and in the last couple of years, he helped me and quite some friends of mine buying a house in this city. So, Hans, I leave you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Daniele. I'm an estate agent for over 8 years now, based in Amsterdam, and the Amsterdam market is the only thing I look at the moment. I only do the buying part, so I don't sell anything. I just help a buyer to find, search, research, and buy the property in Amsterdam, and I love doing it.
Okay, so I bought an apartment 6 years ago. That was in 2010, and I think a lot of things have happened since then. So maybe you can explain a bit what happened with the market and where we are now.
Yes, of course. Well, we all know that in 2008 the crisis started, so it dropped a little bit in Amsterdam towards 2010. Then at the end of 2010 it went up a little bit, the prices, and then because there was some good news on financial parts. After that it dropped again, but just a little bit. The Netherlands it dropped a lot, but if you look at Amsterdam it was kind of stable still. The lowest prices were made somewhere around 2013, and after that it stabilized. Towards 2014 the prices remained the same, and the number of sales went up, and after that it went up quite a lot, with a big peak since 2015 to 2016. I think prices in some areas in Amsterdam went up with almost 20%. So that's basically it's a bit too much. It's not the most healthy way to rise in the market, but it looks like it's still going strong, and especially with some world news like the Brexit and things like that. I think Amsterdam will only be stronger. That in combination with a very good interest rate on your mortgage at the moment. The interest rate is around 2.5%. We all think that it stays like that for the next 2, 3, 4 years maybe. So I don't see Amsterdam going down anywhere soon.
Okay, yeah, I see that the prices in the last year. By the way, now it's 1st July 2016, so that's to put things in context with a date. And the prices are still very high here in Amsterdam. So can you explain a bit more if it's still a good moment to buy and why?
Well, like I said before, the prices went up quite a lot, but there are a few marks that where it looks like they will still keep on rising. One is, of course, that the interest will stay a bit lower for the next few years. Another one, if you compare Amsterdam to any other major capital in the world, or financial hotspots, for example, like London, New York, Paris, or any other big cities, then prices are very, very low if you compare it. So I think it's still a pretty good moment to buy. You just need to buy for the right price, of course.
Okay. And yeah, so what is the process when someone is interested to buy a house in Amsterdam? How does it work? It's something that we already mentioned in the articles, but I think it's good to go over the process here in the interview.
Well, first, most important thing I think everyone should do is check what the possibilities are. So check either your mortgage, your savings, or whatever. So you have to know what you can spend on a house. If you know that, then you can start looking either in the neighborhoods, so which area you want to live, or what are the most important things for you to live in. So, for example, do you want like a 200 square meter apartment? Do you want a freestanding house, or do you want a small apartment with a balcony? Whatever you really want, that's quite important, because then you can see if that's possible, if that's even possible in the area you like. And once you see it's possible, then first thing is search on the websites, the housing websites. Search for for profitable houses, and from there viewings are most important. Make sure you are, if you want to do a viewing, make sure it's listed. The house is listed for 1 or 2 days, because the market is kind of hot at the moment. So usually, if it's a nice house, it's sold within a week. and most of the time above asking price. And that's not because people are willing to pay more than the value, but it's usually because the value is a bit lower or a bit higher than the asking price. So it's kind of a tactic from selling agents to put it a bit lower. More people come in, and more people means more pressure. More pressure means a higher price. And once you've seen a property, well, it's based to research very well. And of course, you can do it yourself, but that's also my work. So you can also have a real estate agent do that for you. And from there on, it's make an offer, get to an agreement with the seller, and then you have the entire legal part, which is done by a notary, but also the agent that is involved, the buying agent, is guiding you through that entire process. And then at the end of the process, it's all about paying the money and getting the keys.
And what about the mortgage part? How difficult it is to get a mortgage now, and how that fit in the process?
Well, normally, if you need a mortgage, you would go to a mortgage advisor before searching, so you know what the possibilities are. And it is good to know that you need to have a Dutch income to get a mortgage. So you can be from abroad, but you have to have a Dutch income. And the mortgage is still, you can get a mortgage of 102% of the value, and that will go down with 1% every year until it hits the 100% mark. And after that, it stays at 100, or they change the political thoughts, of course. The mortgage itself, once you know it's possible, the mortgage itself, you're going to apply for it once you have an agreement, because the bank will need the written and the signed buyer's agreement before they start doing anything. So you cannot really get pre-approved. You can get a very good idea if you can get it or not, but the actual agreement from the bank is something you get after you have the agreement and after you sign the buyer's agreement.
Okay, and if I remember right, if you don't get the mortgage for any reason, then you can cancel. That's a good reason to cancel the buying agreement, right?
If you have put the condition of a financial to get the mortgage into the buyer's contract, then you can still back out on a contract once you get a denial, or basically two denials from two different banks. If you haven't done that, so if you're not going to put any conditions in the buyer's contract, then you can still back out, but that's quite an expensive trick, because then you have to pay 10%. So it's all about the conditions you put in the contract. It's quite important.
Okay, and sometimes I get questions from people that are not living in Netherlands, but they are interested in buying a house in Netherlands as an investment, because they see that it's a very stable economy, it's a very well organized country. So is that possible, and how does that work?
Yes, that is possible, but you do need to bring cash, because you can't get a mortgage that way. So you can buy as an investment, and the only thing what you have to think about is that the searching is a bit harder, because when you're abroad, it's pretty hard to fly over and check a house, especially if a house is sold within a week or so. So you have to be quick. You're probably going to have to trust the agent a lot. The agent is working for you, because they will have to tell you if it's a good apartment or not. And the other thing is that in the Netherlands, you are charged with tax for the real estate if you buy something here. So there's a special, it's in box 3, it's called. You have box 1, box 2, box 3. Box 1 is for income, box 3 is for everything you own. So if you buy a house here, the value of the house is taxed, and not the rent you get from it.
Okay, yeah. So you mentioned rent. There are also some interest in buying a house to rent it out. Yes, there is a dog here. We are in a cafe. We met in a cafe, and so interested in buy a house with the idea of rent it out. Or some people, they just stay maybe in Netherlands for a couple of years, and then they move out, especially expat people. So is it possible to leave the country and renting out the apartment? Is that something that can be profitable?
Well, it can be very profitable. There are two things you have to keep in mind then. One is, if you have a mortgage, for example, if you live here as an expat and you're going to move abroad, Officially, in the mortgage deed you sign with the bank, you are not allowed to rent out your apartment unless you ask for permission. And usually the bank doesn't give any permission because officially a rented out apartment is worth less than an empty apartment. So the bank is not going to agree because then they cannot get their money back if they have to sell it because you don't pay or whatever reason. But that said, a lot of people still do it because most banks just don't check anything as long as you just pay your mortgage in time. So that's one thing. The other thing, if you buy with cash and you're gonna rent it out, it's also possible. It's no problem at all. The only most important thing you have to keep in mind is that Amsterdam has a social housing system. So there's a point system where houses are ranked in points, and you have to be above a certain points to be able to rent it out in a free market. Because if you don't meet that points, then there's a maximum rent you can ask. So that means that, for example, if you buy a house for 250,000 euros, while it's not in the free market, you end up with a rent of 600 or 700 euros. So that's quite crap. And you can't really get the tenants out once they're in and they want to stay. So that's something to think about. So make sure you buy something that's in the free market, and then you're good.
Okay. And how can someone be sure that it's in free market, the apartment is going to buy?
Well, it's important to make a point check before you buy it or to make an offer on it. So the points are based on the square meters, on how luxury it is, the energy label, but also the tax value. So it's called the WOZ-waarde in Dutch, and that's the value that the government gives to the property.
Okay, and so maybe because you have been working with quite some foreigners in your experience, so what are the, let's say, common mistakes that people, especially foreigners, do when they want to buy a house in Amsterdam, or something that they overlook, or common pitfalls?
Well, I think the most common mistake people make, maybe it's not a real mistake, but what a lot of people do is they just make an offer on a property or make multiple offers on multiple properties at the same time and are still not sure if they really like the property. So I think it's very important to only make an offer if you really like a property, because otherwise you have to back out, and it is possible to back out, but it's not good for your name. And if you would make an offer on a property and you would back out after you have an agreement, and you would want to make an offer on another property with the same agent, then there's a big chance he would tell the seller that you are not really reliable and not go for you, and then you would end up never buy a house. So only make an offer on one property at a time and on a property you really like, and don't do it otherwise.
Okay, thank you. And well, the last thing, maybe you have some suggestions for people that are now interested in buying a house in Amsterdam?
Well, I would suggest that do have a good look at the websites, so see what is available and make sure what you want. So don't come into Amsterdam and try to buy something in the city center for 150,000 euros, because it's never going to work. Be honest to yourself, so know what you really want. What is most important? Is it the square meters, or is it location, or is it for investment, or whatever? And make sure that you know what you can pay. And then I would come to Amsterdam and bike around if you know how to bike. Otherwise, rent a bike or walk around. Also a good thing. Just walk around in the city and in the different areas and see what you like most.
Okay, and you mentioned a couple of times the website. Check online on the website. I know funda.nl is, let's say, number one. There are other resources?
I would focus on funda.nl because that's a website where agents put their houses on directly, and most of the other ones are all spider websites, which means that they just pick their houses from other websites, for example Funda, but also from agents themselves, and they sometimes pick houses from websites where the sold houses are listed. So then you got a very old listing, and it looks like it's a great apartment, a great opportunity for a great price, and it's already sold. So check on Funda, and if you really can't find it, then you can start checking out other things, but it's going to cost a lot more time, for sure.
Okay, Hans, well, thank you very much for your time and for this interview. Okay.